in any decision making that has implications in their fields. I supported a 2% merit increase that we decided to use some of our surplus for. I also supported career development for our officers. And the statement that we spend $100,000 to train fire and policemen just to lose them to other localities is blatantly false. We've lost 9 firefighters in 9 years to other localities. That's 1.5 firefighters a year out of a force of 430. We have an overall a turnover rate of 4 to 8%, and a lot of that has to do with retirements, spouses moving to other localities, and it has to do with discipline with discipline and not properly doing the job. As far as there were so many falsehoods, I should have been writing them down. And the police is the same thing. We have most of our police. The reason that they leave has to do with family, or it has to do, a lot of them will take a job, a federal paid job, which is like in the $80,000 to $100,000, which we really cannot compete with. So I will continue to, in our equipment, we reduced aging fire apparatus from 26% to 2%. Foreman on a fire truck, that's a national overall standard, and there's a lot of variables that go into whether 3 or 4 men on the fire truck is sufficient.
Your time is up. I will give you an extra 15 seconds to answer the question. Would you increase the number of personnel, and how would you pay for it?
I would increase the number of personnel if the departments could justify with statistics that we needed to increase the personnel to meet our goals. And what we would do is we would do what we've done in the past couple of years. We've analyzed our budget, and we've moved priorities around and funded what our goals are.
Thank you. If you had to vote today, which version of the comprehensive plan would you support? The one proposed by the paid consultant group and the Citizens Steering Committee, or the Planning Commission's version of the comprehensive plan? Please explain your response, Ms. James.
Well, I was most disappointed in the 25-acre versus the 5-acre as an either-or, without taking seriously the need for both agrarian uses and developable lands for the future growth of the county. At this point, I don't think there's not enough information for me to stand by either the 5-acre or the 25-acre. And if you recall, that decision was made by the Planning Commission in the last couple of weeks to go first from 25, then to 5, then from 2 to 5. So I don't think the board at this point has sufficient information to take a stand on which version of the comprehensive plan that we would support. I did defer the comprehensive plan because the planning commissioner said that it was not possible to stay on the schedule and get community input, and that was one of the reasons that I pushed to defer the comprehensive plan. And looking at the changes that they've made, I think I was correct in supporting that deferral.
Mr. Faust?
The Planning Commission was an appointed body of 5 members. None of them are planners. They have taken a plan for which the county taxpayers paid almost $1.3 million for without public input, rendering it ineffective. My opponent voted to kick the comp plan beyond the election, saying she wanted to hear from special interests like the Board of Realtors. 33 citizens of the steering committee worked on the plan for months, for 18 months, with at least 3 appointed by my opponent. We as citizens should look at the comp plan in depth before deciding on how it should look going forward. Chesterfield should consider its rural agriculture as an asset, but we should consider what they want, not just what realtors want, as our current supervisor says. Before making a decision, I would call in the planning consultants, steering committee members, the planning commission, and interested members of the public to find out what truly is desired by the people.
Thank you. The recently approved amendments to the electronic message center policy, which was supported by many in the business community, were a topic of much discussion from your respective campaigns. Where do you stand on allowing an electronic message center in the Chester Village? Mr. Faust.
My stance is I'm not in favor of it. I think that's pretty well known in the Chester area. My opinion is that the marketing plan is wrong. This is not a shopping center like you see in most places. It's what's become the new part of the Chester community. Folks from as far as Wooddale Road on one side, Winfrey Street, all the way out to Branders Bridge, they all consider Chester the center of their world. It's what they call home. And to take, it's not just Chester Village, the little new development there. It belongs to everyone. And I think to go forward on an electronic message sign without input from the public. Remember that, without input from the public, it's the wrong way to go. We should be studying the market, studying what is the right thing to do to market Chester Village Green, and move on from there, not just decide arbitrarily that it should happen without any input from all of you.
Ms. Jenkins.
Mr. Faust is incorrect that there will be no more input because the sign still will have to go through the zoning policy that the community and be reviewed by the community. The reason the planning department looked at the electric messaging sign issue was because the nature of electronic messaging has changed. Originally, electronic messaging's purpose was to flash and have changes of colors and move to get your attention while you were driving. Now, electronic messages have become kind of, the purpose of them is to be able to change your message without having to go out and manually change a reader, something like a reader board. I mean, if you've ever had the duty of changing the reader board, which I can remember having down at the PTA at Curtis, it's a laborious task, but and if you're only changing the message once a week, it's laborious. But when you're a group of businesses and you all like to take a turn to have 30 seconds to just have your sign out there or your message out there, that it's really changed the difference of what the old electronic signs were doing and why we put limitations on them. So all I did was leave that door open so that the Chester Village, I mean, I know that everybody wants a healthy festival park and they want those businesses to be successful, and I just left the door open so they might have an opportunity if they do decide that that is the way that they would like to get their message out. And that will be decided by the community and the Chester Village Green Group.
We're about halfway through the prepared questions from the committee. Just want to remind you that there are index cards available. It's your last chance to submit questions, which will be asked after we complete the steering committee's questions. The Jefferson Davis Highway corridor likely will lose the 2 enterprise zone designations. In that event, what would you do to encourage redevelopment in that corridor, Ms. Jacobs?
Well, I think, you know, the whole purpose of an enterprise zone and the whole purpose of any of those kind of CDBG grants is to give localities an opportunity to try different things and figure out what works and what doesn't. And so what I would do is I would evaluate what we had done with the enterprise zone and look to the county to continue those, what we thought was successful, things that were successful, and discontinue things that were not successful.
Mr. Faust.
We have a lot of issues on the Jeff Davis corridor. We haven't made a whole lot of inroads for a number of years. Winchester Green was a great project up near Bensley, taking out the old Park Apartments, I believe was the name of it. But we've had some great successes with the block grant. But if going away, we need to figure out a better way of doing things up there. Now, one thing I'll say that's not a good thing is approving something like a pawn shop there, where you can see obvious problems with something like that on the Jeff Davis corridor. But there's also some issues with the type of retail that we're putting up there. Now we really have to study Jeff Davis a little bit further. We've had numerous studies over the years, but we really have to have a common sense approach to how we're dealing with it. So I think that with the JDA, with some other groups like the Bensley Village Group, we may be able to come up with some ideas for up there, but we really have to get together and we have to make some important decisions on how to go forward.
Thank you. Here's another carryover from the school board discussion we were having earlier. There was a lot of controversy about the school board's decision to create a 9th grade campus for Thomasdale High School at the former Chester Middle School. Do you support the decision that was made by the school board? Mr. Fowles?
No, I don't. But before we lay blame on one particular school board member or the school board in itself, I think that we need to look at it in its whole curve, it's in its totality, I would say. 10 months before the decision was made, 10 months before you saw folks protesting out in the front of the Chester Middle School, our supervisor knew about the closing, what was coming up. She proposed busing everyone down to the middle school or the elementary school down in Enid. She also proposed closing Community High School, which is a big asset to the community and to our school system. One thing she didn't do was come forward and talk with the community. That's what needed to be done early on. Now, some of that started to happen through Mr. Trammell. Now, he gave it his best shot to try to work with people and try to make some decisions, allow the community to make some decisions there. But it was a little bit late in the game. He got thrown under the bus for that, and I don't think he deserves to be persecuted, basically, for the decisions that were made later on.
Thank you. Ms. Abel?
No, what I would have done is, when I got on the board, they were just about to open Elizabeth Davis Middle School, and when I looked at the numbers, I knew we were going to be in big trouble, because all through the election, everybody wanted to know what we were really doing about the overcrowding of Thomasdale. Due to poor decisions and not looking at numbers, we had three middle schools that were going to have 1,200 empty seats, and one high school that was overcrowded by 700. I suggested not opening Elizabeth Davis, and opening it as Chester Middle, as a temporary solution until we had the funding for a high school, and then we could move Chester Middle back to Chester. And that way, the staff would have stayed intact, and there would have been some shuffling of students, but I felt that you wouldn't have disbanded the middle school. That was promptly closed, the school board promptly closed the door on that idea. I never mentioned anything again, and the next thing I knew, I get a phone call that they're closing Chester Middle School. So it's blatantly false what Mr. Faust says about me knowing 10 months. All I did was I saw the writing on the wall, I saw the numbers, and I knew that we were going to be held accountable. And all I can say is that at least I hope we've learned our lesson, and from now on we won't just build the 1,200 middle school. Even if I recall, Ms. Durfee at the time was speaking to the board of supervisors as a citizen, saying they were making a mistake building a middle school in Bermuda. They should have been building a high school. So maybe we'll listen and we'll look at numbers, and that will never happen again. And my long-term goal, and I haven't put it back in the comp plan, is to get Chester Middle back into Chester.
Thank you, Ms. Shackle.